to someone who's competent enough to win the case and get an acquittal in a criminal trial, allow for the court system to remove him from the case. That act of removal impedes the very title of the NAACP, the Advancement of Colored People. And then, after requesting his assistance on the case, he comes back to you to ask for your support moving forward, and they issue an edict, if you will, to Baltimore to keep their hands off it and then back off of it. Where is the advancement of colored people in that act? I just wanted to make that point, Brother Bay.
And I can tell you, because it was that organization and the illusion that I had about the organization, not only did I do the case for less than half, I did it somewhere around 30% of the market rate, 20, 30%, because they came. And so with a wife and 6 children, for them to leave me high and dry on their case is more than upsetting, and to do so for 27 years. Again, this is not the Medgar Evers NAACP. This is not the ride or die version that I had seen growing up. I think it's a social group with Negroes that want to have white friends. And now, since I grew up in an all-white town, and I have so many white friends, I could actually give them some white friends if they would just stand up for what they say they believe in. And in my case, it's terrible. But again, so we know from the state of New York that they're running an apartheid system of justice. We know from the state of New York that they know that in murder trials, Suffolk County detectives are committing perjury. I mean, that's their findings. We also know that the legislatures have said that they were going to, in fact, compensate me for these 27 years. I certainly would have been a multimillionaire by now. And again, as you look at the comparisons of, we started to get through last week, but I'm going to just tell you now, we have an attorney who, Joe Carrio, and I just want to show the audience. All right, so now Joe steals $900,000 from his clients, which is grand larceny, 5 to 15 years in prison. He doesn't even get a misdemeanor. He doesn't even get arrested. We have Ken Littman. Yeah, he foot fetish. He asked this young girl to meet him for sex once a week, gave her money. They taped it. Soliciting anything? No arrest. And she was horrified that they didn't prosecute the guy. He happened to have prosecuted me. And here's another guy, that's from Ken Littman, that same guy, to my lawyer, Billy Keon. Billy Keon.
Littman, in today's environment, Littman's action would be considered human trafficking.
Well, pimping ain't easy. And again, for me, his wife had just given a baby, he had given birth. And for him to run around, because he couldn't wait for her to heal after giving him a child. Anyway, that's on him. But long story short, he was the head of the homicide prosecutions. And when a woman that got out of the mental institution, literally, in a public setting, 2 weeks after I had been there, said that while doing the electric slide, I hit her breast. And then they arrested me and brought the head of the homicide squad to prosecute me. But as it turned out, he had some dark shadows. Speaking of the peculiarness of Suffolk County, we have the judge, the dirty panty stealing judge. This judge who went next door to his neighbor's house and went upstairs and into their bathroom. Judge Robert Cicale, Sircal, and basically went through their dirty hamper collecting the dirty panties of his neighbors. And but they did arrest him, which and again, this are the people that are judging you. And now this guy, Robert Macedonia, he got caught in an African-American Hispanic neighborhood doing mortgages and falsifying claims so people would get loans. They didn't know that. He'd tell them that, no, you didn't get a loan. He took their money, and he took $2.3 million worth of money from these people. They caught him. He was selling cocaine out of his law office, and they charged him with a felony. He pled guilty to a felony, and then in the back door, they dropped it down to a misdemeanor, and he has been reinstated after stealing primarily minority homeowners and having them evicted behind his theft. And I mean, it just goes on and on in terms of the double standard, the two-tier justice system that they have, not only in New York, not only in Long Island, but throughout America. And so I'm just sitting here watching and collecting all of these cases, and I'm wondering why I'm been told that after passing the reinstatement competency exam 5 times, maybe 6, that then I'm told that I have to go into a 350-bed psychiatric prison for the criminally insane to be checked to see if I'm competent, when I've already passed the exam that says that I am. And we have another judge, wrong side of the law, stabbed his wife, almost killed her. She needed surgery. I don't know if it was 12 hours, but they arrested him and then charged him, and then they dropped the charges, but he was allowed to, to stay there. So, but again, the case that I had mentioned at the end of the last show happens to be what I think is the most horrific case of them all, and all of them are horrific, really, is the former Suffolk County Assistant District Attorney Glenn Ross Hughes-Rod.
Now, before you talk about that, let me just make another comment, my brother.
Go ahead.
Here's this judge that stabs his wife multiple times.
Yes.
Contrast that with the decision to try to send Mr. Vickers Bay to an institution to be evaluated for competency for 360 days. And here's the other person that stabs his wife, and he don't have to go to no psychiatric ward. They drop the charges down, and he's back sipping martinis.
Yeah, he collected $210,000 while they were deciding what they were going to do, and then they allowed him to retire. And the first guy, Joe Carrio, as I mentioned in the last segment, is now the president of the Nassau County Republican Party, and he's also the president of OTB. So he's making $305,000 because he doesn't have a criminal record, even though he's committed and admitted to committing a criminal act. Because let me steal $900,000 from white folks and my clients, and you see if I get a free walk or anyone, and as we're talking about reparations, this is going on all the time. We're being criminalized all the time. And for things that white folks do that would never be caught or stopped by, they're not stopped and frisked. I know that in my white community of Babylon, if the cops are going around stopping and frisking high school white teenagers, they could get shot because white men aren't going for that. They're not letting you stop and frisk their daughters. They're not letting you stop and frisk their wives. And yet you have an unconstitutional stop. You're going in somebody's pocket, and then you find a joint. Then you go, okay, you're arrested. Now you got a criminal justice problem. Now you got your maybe there's bail. All types of things are happening. So that's why reparations needs to be paid. And I think what white America needs to know.
You guys would be so.
Is that I'm on the phone. I'm on TV. Sorry.
I'm on the phone.
What white America needs to know is that at some point you have to look at the continuation of the harm, because we've been stamped from slavery and now we're all the way through, and this really hasn't stopped. And whether it's banking, acquiring businesses, loans, anything, you just have been discriminating against us across the board. And we've helped build this country in great measure. So at some point, I how much schooling I went to, the logistics, as I mentioned before, getting up in the morning, 4:30, driving across town, walking, parking my car, walking a mile back, taking the train into the city, coming back, walking back, and then studying to the library until it closes at midnight. And you do that for 4 years, and then someone says, you know what? Your clients love you, but we don't like you. Questioning white police officers, they don't like it, and really just making them account to the African American community. So, and as I mentioned with this Glenn Kuzrock, the Suffolk County Assistant District Attorney, he withheld evidence on 5 cases of 5 African Americans that he charged with murder. One person, one brother, Sean Lewis, he was sentenced to 75 years to life. And he did 6 years before he got out. Married, children, you lose a major income, and he had a good job. So the family is destroyed. And these are what I find interesting. And then and let me finish my whole thought on this, is that Donald Trump is one of the great salesmen for criminal justice reform that we've had. Because when he was a white man and he looked at the criminal justice system from the top to the bottom, he had no problem saying, Central Park joggers and children, they should get the death penalty. He had no problem with that. Now he's looking at the system from the bottom to the top, the way the African American men look at it. And he can't tell you how screwed up it is. He can't tell you how wrong it is, how abusive it is, that the prosecutor can take witnesses and say, you're going to testify this way, or you're going to go to jail. And even lawyers who've taken oaths never to tell conferences, you got to slap them to keep them from talking. And again, they make the mafia look like children in terms of, we're making you an offer you can't refuse. And so it's interesting that, and half the country is rallying around this guy, and half the country is now questioning the judiciary. Anyway, Billy Cleon got caught with cocaine in his system. He was blood alcohol of 200%, and he ran into a surgeon who, and again, he was my defense attorney, and he was one of the major defense attorneys, still is, in Suffolk County. Uh, and so I have a letter written to Billy Keon from Ken Littman. Ken Littman solicited for sex with a child. Billy Keon was drunk, ran head on, 3-lane highway. He was going against the grain. It was a one-way, 3-lane highway. He was so drunk and so high on cocaine that he ran into a surgeon's car, and the surgeon's hand was severed to, not severed, but it was injured to such an extent that he could never do surgery again. And again, no jail time, no loss of license. We know Thomas Spoder from Suffolk County, the district attorney, who's now in prison for falsifying statements, hiding abuse, beating up a prisoner. And ironically, he's in jail with a Chris McPartland, assistant district attorney, Chris McPartland, who was the guy who told me to come to this after work DA gathering, and he was going to meet me, introduce me to all the players there. He was in charge of dirty tricks in the office, and I was probably one of the first ones. And so when I came in there, stayed there and negotiated. It was my first manslaughter case. I negotiated with one of the DAs there, and we did electric slide. Well, 2 weeks later, his side chick brought those sex charges that I hit her while dancing, and that's when I got the head of the homicide prosecutor. And so, but all of these white men, they lost nothing. No one suspended their license, and like I said, it's a double standard. Now, Ed Howlett, the other retired police officer, he was arrested. Carlos Cruz, he was arrested. So all three of us were arrested in denied professions. And you go into the city, you look at, the estate of Alton Maddox, C. Vernon Mason, all these people who've had their licenses stolen. And the brother that represented, there was a young man that was convicted of killing during that big riot in Brooklyn. You remember the young boy Cato, the young boy that was run over by the Jewish ambulance, and but the black attorney that ended up representing him, he was told that, hey, he won the case in state court. They went in federal court, and they said, if you take this case and win, we're going to take your law license. So being able to take our law licenses or our medical licenses, and that's why I wrote a book and finishing up now. I never gave up the fight to defend black attorneys and W.E. Du Bois' talented 10th, because all the people that, too many of the people in the professions are being railroaded if you don't have a white partner, whether that's in medicine, etc. Dr. Jennifer Daniels graduated #1 from Harvard, then went, and she had a job while she did it, by the way, humble background economically, went to the University of Pennsylvania Medical School, UPenn, Ivy League, graduated the 3-year medical program in 2 years, and said, hey, you owe me another year, give me a third of the money back. They said, well, we're not going to do that. But then they worked out a deal where she went to the Wharton School of Business and graduated there. And again, that's what Donald Trump went as well. And it's considered one of the #1 business schools in the world. So this triple Ivy League woman who lived upstate where the governor lives, upstate New York, Jennifer Daniels, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, couldn't get a job. Then she decided that she would go to a depressed area, and she built a medical building from scratch. She designed it, she financed it, she built it from scratch. She didn't want to, and then she hired she didn't. She did not want to go through the insurance process. She said, "Look, I'm going to give the community. You pay me cash, but it's going to be a low amount." And she was taking money from the clinic, which was run by a white woman whose husband was on the board. And that board ended up suspending her medical license after she built her practice up. And I saw the document of the suspension said that she could not lease this building this brand new building that she built specifically for doctors because they wanted her to go into foreclosure so they could take that building for themselves. She left the country, forced to leave the country. Brilliant woman. I mean, you can do UPenn Medical School in 2 years and not 3. Graduate #1 from Harvard. And another sister, Miriam Snyder, bilingual teacher of the year in the state of New York. Within 3 years, out of Freeport, she got over to Hempstead, recruited her after she was awarded. And if you're 16 years in the business, after you do 1 year with a satisfactory evaluation, you get tenured at that new school. Well, she did 1 year. They didn't give her tenure, even though that's by contract. She did a second year, another satisfactory. They still wouldn't give her tenure. And so she complained, and then there was retribution, and she's out of the practice. Double masters in Spanish and in administration. So all these talented temps and for those who don't know W.D. Du Bois's talented temp theory, it is that for each race, the talented tenth of each race would set policies and lead their race out of their circumstance. And again, our talented temps are being crushed. And I've stated on principle, but it's hard to, duck your kids for lunch money for damn near the entirety of their school. When you have a service that was I was making 6 figures my first year out, reasonable pricing, but there's such a hunger to have someone actually defend our community. And so
absolutely. I'd like for you to talk about 2 things now, and before we open up the floor to anyone who may have questions for you. First and foremost, where is the situation with the woman that was incarcerated? I believe her name is Siobhan Thomas.
Yes.
And then the second question is, I'd like you to speak about is where is your case now going from this present stand forward? So those 2 things, what the young woman who was incarcerated and where your case stands now.
Yeah, she did 23 years and she went to parole, maybe it was 25 years. And they told her, look, come back after you've done 40, we're not letting you out. The father told me that. And because of my unconstitutional removal from her case, I let the Suffolk County Executive, Steve Ballone, I let the Suffolk County Sheriff and the Suffolk County Police head, all the 2 are African Americans, and Mr. Ballone has a pretty open view. And I let him know, I said, look, this case becomes unsettled. Those 6 detectives who are 20 years in the business, every case they have becomes unsettled as well. And it could possibly bankrupt the state of Suffolk County. And so for whatever reasons after that, and I have the emails, I'm in fact going to share them with her father, they made the decision to release her. Now, I check on my client every now and then, 3 or 4 years, whatever, and I checked on her and saw that she was on parole. The family never told me. So after making this lifetime sacrifice, to say that I was disappointed perhaps is an understatement. I thought they could have, at the very least, notified me of her release. But again, that's the nature of this business. She's out on parole. She did 25 years. She didn't have to do the 40. And the politics of that were good. Now, the fact of this, where my circumstances are, is I have a petition in for reparations prior, and I resubmitted that petition for reparations. And so, because it involves more than one attorney, and again, a conservative Phil Boyle senator, he's just retired. Phil Boyle indicated to me that, look, if you have more than one person, the legislature and the governor, three branches, can in fact make the payment. And usually, by the way, they can take it out of the judiciary. The checks and balances for the judiciary are from the executive and the legislative on the purse string level. So they can make this petition. And when I started this a while ago, since I was being attacked by the judiciary, I said, well, who got paid outside of court? And I was the Japanese in World War II who got paid through the executive and legislative branches after they were denied justice in the court. So I headed that direction some time ago. I was surprised that it was the Democrats, more specifically Andrew Cuomo, that stopped what the Republicans felt was justifiable, which was the compensation for me and my family. So I've again passed the reinstatement exam. I'm going to reapply this year. They have since withdrawn the requirements of going to a psych ward that they instituted for me. And that requirement, which never existed before, has been repealed. And but again, I'm 66 in Friday, December 22nd, and so I would practice some because there's always so many people, but it's not like I'm in my 30s building a practice to hand down to my children. And so again, in my mind, New York is also a black code state where the black codes indicated if you want to keep blacks as a second-class citizen, don't allow them to build businesses on Main Street, don't allow them into commerce. So you're seeing that these attacks that have been made against us, economic, and this is why any fair review as to why we're petitioning for reparations here in America. It's just everywhere we go, there's something about competition, but the fact that they use so many systems to crush us and to keep us in this state of dependence, this state of economic oppression. That's really where I am. I did have a friend that had asked me to, because there were so many lawyers, whether or not we would do a class action, but I don't have another 3 years of waiting on this. This has been 27 years. You heard the report from the Republicans from the affidavit of Reverend Maddox. They were willing to resolve this transaction back in 2012. The Democrats have not. So I'm hoping that Governor Hochul will do what Andrew Cuomo would not. And she seems to be much more open. And this is really this is really an easy case because there are just so many levels. There's so many New York State investigative reports on the perjury, on the targeting. The 1991 Minority Report said that black attorneys are suspended for things white attorneys are not. Well, pay your common debt, and sometimes your role in life is to open the door for the next generation. And there are a lot of black attorneys now in Suffolk County who, whether they know it or not, and whether they acknowledge it or not, they own their freedom and their right to practice to the sacrifices of attorney Ed Howlett, to the sacrifices of attorney Carlos Cruz, and to the sacrifices of myself, Glenn Vickers. So, I just wish that they were more. It seems that so many, when I go to the meetings, are so interested in being a judge, as opposed to staying in the trenches with our people. And I would tell any young lawyer, if you stay close to the African American, to the Puerto Rican, to the Dominican, to the minority communities, you're going to make money, because there are things that the system does to our people they wouldn't dare do in white neighborhoods. And so if you stay vigilant and stay on your game and continue to develop your skills, you can't help but make money, because, again, things are done to us that aren't done to anybody. And with that,
At this point, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone that may have any questions for you.
I'm here.
Yes, many examples and cases was today, and maybe you can remember some cases with musicians and crimes.
Well, I practiced from 1992 to 1997, and in that window, I really was focusing in on maybe clients that were dealing with drug possession, drug sales, rape, robbery, mayhem, those type of accusations. I wasn't doing so much with respect to, and I know there's a lot coming out now, with respect to like the Puffy Combs of the world, etc. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, if you look at the back of Michael Jackson's last tour, was a bodyguard for Michael Jackson, and he gives thanks to Billy Whitfield, which is my wife's maiden name. But in terms of, and again, my daughter, somewhat of a hip hop legend. Again, if you YouTube Beyonce and Diva, and you look at that international hit, the dancer to the left, she's dancing with two dancers. The dancer to the left is my oldest daughter, Tani McCall. So I really haven't had anything to do, because they haven't let me work for 27 years. I really have no entertainment cases. I did have an interest, because I thought the playing college basketball and generating so many millions of dollars and not being able to profit off my image. And I thought I was going to go to Wall Street to take on college athletics, but they've now allowed the college athlete to, leave the way our college coaches always did. You can leave and you can get paid for your image. So I think that's a breakthrough for the entertainment law. But no, I have no personal knowledge of anything with music or musicians.
Okay, thank you very much.
Greetings.
A statement, basically. It's not really a question, because what you said basically already answered the question. But I think it's crazy that these guys, the Jews, they basically say they are the law. So when you decided, they basically said, hey, if you're going to take this case, we're not going to let you practice law. Like, basically, this is our law system, so you can't go against us in our own law system. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, this whole thing is ridiculous, and the pain that my wife is having to put all this weight on her back is very, very, that's what I worked for, to make sure that she didn't have to do that. And you wanted to give your kids the very best. And so now this is some propaganda. Glenn Vickers, Iona's Hope for the Big Time. That's back in 1976 when I started big time basketball for them. And then I had when Iona first went to the tournament, and Ron Guidry, who's in the Hall of Fame, I got top billing that day. So that's when we played and we beat St. John's to go to the tournament. But this is my wife, and she was an international model, top pitcher, and she's just had to 6 children we have, and she's just had to struggle and do math for bills and juggling, etc. And so when they attack us and when they criminalize black men, the things that you can't do, and sometimes sisters are like, they just know that they're struggling and they want you to be the man to do whatever you can do, but you're getting these odd jobs and you're carrying this fight, and you have a vow to marriage vow, you have a vow as an attorney, and at some point, the discipline, because I'm beyond, angry. I'm beyond angry because you spend all these years, 13 years of high school, another 4 years, at 17 years, and then another 4 years going to law school at night. So you have 21 years. You passed one of the toughest exams, and the New York bar is tougher than everybody else. You pass the New York bar, Connecticut bar, and if you're suspended in one, you lose the license and all. And so, but I would never take someone's money and then go sell them out in the back. And this walk, you were just wondering why God. I didn't complain when God let me win all those basketball games, or have all those scholarships, or this or that, or those great jobs that I negotiated out of high school. So when it turns against you, you just say, well, what am I supposed to do from this card? But I think I'm supposed to be among the first people to get awarded reparations. I think bringing out some of these old reports that people don't know about. The 1991 report is, thank you. The 1991 report is something that we could stand on to get reparations for everyone who's been criminalized. Because you can't say that, you say it's flawed, you say it's racist. Okay, now pay us for what we went through. Well, we don't want to do that. I think you got to do that. So,
and it's ironic that this discussion is taking place right now. It just got reported in the Washington Post that Rudolph Giuliani has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, trying to avoid paying $148 million that he was just been sued for, that was awarded to Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss for the lies and the propaganda narrative that they developed regarding those two women trading and dealing in election fraud. So there too heightens the saga of Glen Vickers Bay and what this whole discussion has been about of the justice of injustice against people of color in this country that our people ascribe to as their nationality and their loyalty, yet being continually treated as Glenn quoted earlier, that the white man the black man has no rights that the white man is bound to respect in the Dred Scott case over 140 years ago. Over 140 years ago. So
we are the only group that has not embraced the Second Amendment for our freedom. And when the people came from Europe and they were in the slums, the Italians were in the slums, those organizations, those 5 families, they didn't just come out of nowhere, out of a vacuum. They came to make sure that they got a piece of the apple, a piece of the American dream. Our Jewish brothers, they are so serious with this. They have the Uzi. They manufacture their own guns, their own bullets. And they've said 1 Jew's life is worth 100 Palestinians. And 1,200 Jews were killed, and now we're at 19,000 Palestinians are dead. So there are people who are serious about defending themselves who don't even have half the history of abuse that we have. And at some point, I had a young daughter that asked me, she said, when are black men going to defend us? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank Brother Glen Vickers Bay for this discussion today. I will always bring out this story. We have been contacted by a group that has invited us to participate in a discussion in February, and that network has over 17 million viewers. So we're going to continue to bring this story forward. We're going to continue to walk this path. We're going to continue to do what's necessary to lift our people, no matter what the circumstances are that come up to try to prevent us. And this is the World Media Coalition, Jazz Lovers Television Network. I'm Makakuvu Ali El Bey with Zulu King from out of Lugansk People's Republic in Russia, Ahmad Mansour in Brazil, Chief Turner, who came in from out of New Orleans while he's on assignment, and Ramutef Keb in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I want to thank you all for being on this Thursday production of the Van Miller Talk Show. I found my voice. Until next time. And we also had technical producer Zulu King Fixin live stream this on YouTube and Facebook from our Roku platform. Thank you all. This is the World Media Coalition, Jazz Lovers Television Network. I'm Makakuvu Ali El Bey. Take us out, Fixin. Wmcjltv, Jazz Lovers Television Network. Arts, culture, and entertainment with fine news and business. WMCJLTV.